Hey everybody, Lawrence here, coming at you with another one. It's classic scatter ring, stalactites, stalagmites, whatever you want to call them. Pretty simple, quick, easy build. But here's the thing. A simple piece of scatter terrain, something like this, can easily become a classic D&D monster. Here I'm going to walk you through the process of how I went from some chunks of foam into the also classic roper monsters. I made a couple of them, you gotta have more than one. But now I know original, like first edition, the roper looked very different, basically a blob of jelly with a bunch of tentacles, stone covered jelly tentacles. But I'm going with the modern version is kind of like a stone roper, but is now called a roper. But again, it's a relatively simple and easy process to get from a chunk of foam to this. But before I actually get to it, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my patrons, Dungeon Matron, Me Geek, Corel, and Sykes. You guys' help every month is greatly appreciated, and I can't thank you enough. Seriously, I really do appreciate it. All right, let's get to it. This is pretty simple. I'm just taking some inch-thick foam, cutting it in roughly 1.5 inch wide. This is just all eyeballing it, and kind of matching it up to the bases I got right here. Like I said, I'm just cutting out very rough shapes. Basically square blocks, till they're roughly at a point where I like it, and the height kind of using a miniature to match it up. Just cut a bunch of rough blocks out, ready for the actual carving. Now I actually want to start carving these blocks down to the rough shape of a stalagmite. Stalagmite comes from the ground, stalactite comes from the ceiling. That's the difference. But I just want to get the rough shape down, basically like a pointed piece of stone. And carve it so it's not like a square block here. Pretty simple. Now, I want a couple of these ropers. Only a couple of these stalagmites are going to be ropers. So I want to carve out faces, or just get a rough idea, or draw it out. So when I'm the next few steps, I don't over carve it or cut pieces off I don't want to lose. And here I'm just cutting like triangular shapes. It's like cut in from one side and then cut it at an angle from the other side in various places, so it's not if you look at a stalagmite, it's not perfectly smooth. There are different there are different looks, but the look I'm going for is just like it has rivets or runs through it. I don't know. I was just trying to tell myself when I was doing this, yeah, this looks good. So I want to smooth out all these edges real quick, and fire is the quickest way to do it. Or you could use a heat gun to do what I'm doing. It's just real quick melt the foam a little bit, and also make sure you're in a ventilated area. I have a fan going that you can't see in the background. And of course here I'm just going to carve out where the eyes and the mouth is going to be. It's a pretty well simple. And while you're doing all this carving, make sure you have a really sharp blade. It'll make for nice easy cuts. And here, I just got a shipment of some green stuff in, so I decided to make the eyeballs out of green stuff. You could use, like, small foam balls, cut in half, or whatever you want, but, like I said, I just got this, so I wanted to use it. I just kind of jam it in there, and then carve a little few texture lines into it, and then it's good. It's a pretty simple process. Now here I'm actually mixing up some milliput to do the eyebrow and the area around the mouth. This pretty much the same as using green stuff, but it's a little softer and stickier. But I just made a little sausage, put a line above the eye. And I actually wound up texturing it just by poking a bunch of holes into it. I made some lines in it, then poked the holes, but the lines don't really show up above the eye. And around the mouth, I did the same thing. Made another long sausage with the milliput. Put it around, then smoothed it out with my sculpting tools there, as you can see. And carved a bunch of lines into it to make it more like a natural pattern, not just a smooth area. But again, it's a pretty simple process. Milliput, mix it up. It's soft. It makes a great sculpting item for something like this. And it goes in quick. Wasn't completely happy how the base, the stalagmite was looking so far, so I decided to grab my homemade texture paste and just kind of slather it all on. Give it a more natural stone texture. And this is quite easy to brush. I can just grab a beater brush and then just brush it all over the place and all the cracks and stuff. Of course, avoiding the areas where I textured around the eye and the mouth and leaving that alone. But just kind of slather it all on. Brush it as thin as possible and just try and give it an extra texture. Okay, I wasn't completely happy with how it looked. It was a little too gritty for what it was supposed to be. So I'm grabbing some water and just kind of brushing it over to smooth it out somewhat. Normally I use this texture paste for more gritty looking stuff, and I want this to have a little bit of a smoother look to it. So just use a watered down brush and just brushed all over to smooth it out somewhat. These things need teeth, so I'm grabbing a bunch of toothpicks and clipping off the pointy ends of the toothpicks and just do a whole bunch of them. Now I'm using a toothpick that I didn't clip the sharp point off of and just punching a bunch of guide holes for where the teeth are going to go. I've already done the one, and it was a giant pain in the butt, and so guide holes are a must. But also I'm using this thicker sculpting tool and just making the holes bigger. Because again, I've already did one, and it was hard just trying to get the teeth in without a larger guide hole. Now I'm going to grab these teeth and do this a lot. Grab with tweezers here, dip the dull end in some PVA, and then jam it into one of the guide holes. And just do this over and over and over again until they all have their teeth in. Okay, now I'm covering this thing with black Mod Podge because it was still looking a little too gritty for my taste. Then I wanted to smooth out just a hair bit more because I'm not putting the Mod Podge on for what typically people use the Mod Podge for protection of the foam. No, I'm actually using it to smooth it off a little bit, even more than what it was. See, there's more than one use for Mod Podge, and also using the black helps, basically give it the dark black prime cover. So there's that. Okay, I got all of these tentacles from the Final Faction Tentacle Pack from the Dollar Tree. And, ropers, they have tentacles, so this is what I'm using. This step probably would have been easier to do before I added all the texture paste and all that, but I didn't. So I'm just basically kind of pushing the dull end of the tentacle into where I want to place it, and then just to leave a little impression, put a little squirt of black hot glue in there, and then just pushing it in, and boom, they're attached. And they seem to be pretty secure because I've picked these up with just the tentacles and I've had no issues. And now I'm just going to base the remaining parts of the bases with some construction sand here. Just slather on some PVA glue, and then I'll kind of wave it in the little thing there of the construction sand. Now, I went ahead and black primered it with my airbrush, and now I'm doing a gray zenithal highlight. I'll be honest, originally my intentions were to use some speed paints and stuff on these, but that's why I'm doing the zenithal highlights with this. But to be blunt, zenithal highlighting these wound up being a completely unnecessary step. So if you want to skip doing this, go right ahead. But I'm still doing it because, like I said, right now, as my intentions were when I was doing this, was to use speed paints and some contrast and even express paints. Basically slap chop the whole bit. But I wound up not doing it, so. For the inside of the mouse, I'm just using a speed paint with Slaughter Red. Just real quick. Though this is the only speed paint. Well, I don't know. Yeah, actually, I think this is the only speed paint I wind up using. So, yeah. Now, I wanted to give the ropers and the scatter terrain a purple undertone. Basically go with like an underdark feel to it. So I'm giving it, I mixed a dark purple and a dark gray. And I just base coated everything in the dark purple. Now I'm spotting these in various colors, yellows, browns, reds, oranges. Just break up the color scheme a little bit. By the time I'm done painting, it's barely noticeable at all, but I know it's there and I can see it, so I went ahead and did it. Now here I'm just giving everything an overbrush of a medium gray. And I said going for like roughly 75-85% coverage, leaving the darkest recesses alone. This is a mid-tone. Now here I'm giving everything a quick dry brush with a light gray, just to make all of the details pop and just bring everything up and making it look pretty. Now, typically, I'll just use a dark brown wash to dirty things up, but I noticed I lost the purple tint that I was going for originally, or wanted, so I added a few drops of some purple ink into my dark brown wash. And boy, does it look purple, what I was going for. Right now, it just looks purple, but when it dries out, it dulls down and looks like a dirty purple, which is exactly what I wanted. Yes, Dungeon Matron, this is the point where I was recording during one of the Wednesday night crafters meetups. But here I'm just mixing up a light gray and a light purple together, just so when I do my final dry brush highlight, it still has that purple tint to it, and then doesn't dull down the purple that I'm going for with this. Just a real quick highlight dry brush, and done. I wasn't happy with how the eyes looked, so I'm repainting them. I'm just blocking it out in white right now, and then I'll hit it up. And I honestly forgot to record the rest. I hit the photo button and not the record button. I just hit it with a wash down red, then a little bit of yellow on top of that, watered down, and then some highlights of white, and then a black stripe down the center. And then once that was dry, I hit it with a coat of gloss Mod Podge. Pretty quick and simple. Takes a little practice, but it's not too bad. Now, I wanted to actually dirty it up a little bit, put in some more shadows, so I used a pigment powder and just wherever dirt looked. And then, of course, I got to put some grass tufts on, so I'm using some purple and blue grass tufts from Huge Miniatures and placing them wherever I think they look good. Pretty simple. I'm honestly really happy with how these turned out. Rippers have a creep factor to them, especially if you make scatter terrain that matches them almost identically. So you can put the scatter terrain out and it will creep your players out. Creepy. But I said, if you just put the scatter terrain out, your players won't know, and it'll be in the back of their mind. And it was like, that's part of what scatter terrain can be used for. Hey, if you made it this far, it means you watched to the end, and as always, I greatly appreciate it. If you like the video, hit thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. If you want to comment down below, comment, or off the side, whatever. Hey, but actually, if you want to try and make one of these, come over to do it and come over to the Discord, my Discord link down below, and post pictures. I would absolutely love to see someone else's version of a roper. Not necessarily what I made. I want to see what you guys make. So come over to Discord, post some pictures. I'd love to see it. But as always, guys, scatter terrain, classic monsters. But when you're making your terrain, there's only one person you got to worry about, and it's you, because it's your terrain.